The forgotten past. The galaxy had long forgotten the name humanity. For 10,000 years, the Exilary Empire ruled over countless planets. They were powerful, ruthless, and feared by all. Their fleets crushed any rebellion. Their armies enslaved entire civilizations. They believed they were invincible. But they had a secret, a dark truth hidden from history. Long ago, before the Exilary's rule, there was another race, a race that fought them, a race that almost won. Humans. The Exilary did not like to speak of them. They claimed humans were weak, unworthy, and insignificant, and yet they had wiped them out with everything they had. Every planet burned, every city destroyed, every last human erased. At least, that's what they believed. The discovery. On the edge of Exilary space, a small fleet landed on Velos 7, a forgotten planet covered in ice and mountains. The Exilary were searching for rare minerals, but what they found instead shocked them. Deep beneath the frozen surface, buried under ice and rock, was something impossible. A ship. Not just any ship, a human warship. The Exilary scientists stood in fear. The ship was old, but it still looked powerful. Its black metal hull had strange markings, letters from an extinct language. The scanners showed something even more terrifying. The ship was still active. Lights flickered on. The ship's systems began to wake up. The Exilary officers panicked. How could this be? "This is not possible," one of them whispered. But it was, and things were about to get worse. The awakening. The Exilary sent a team of scientists and soldiers inside the ship. The air was cold. The metal halls were dark and silent. It was like stepping into a tomb. At the center of the ship, they found a control room. Strange symbols covered the screens. The Exilary tried to hack into the system. If they could study this ship, they could learn how the humans fought. Maybe even use their technology for themselves. But the moment they touched the controls, the ship spoke. A deep, cold voice echoed through the halls. "Humanity endures. The war begins again." The screens lit up. Warning sirens screamed. The ship was sending a signal, a distress call. The Exilary commander's blood ran cold. "Where is it sending the message?" he demanded. The scientist checked his device. His hands trembled. "Somewhere deep in space," he said. We don't know where." The commander's voice dropped to a whisper. "Then who is listening?" The fear spreads. The Exilary Empire had always believed humanity was dead, extinct, a forgotten race that could never return. But now, something out there had heard the call. The Exilary rushed back to their ships. They needed to warn the High Council. If any humans were left, they had to be stopped immediately. The commander sent a transmission to the Exilary capital. "We have made a grave mistake. The past is not buried. We must act before it is too late." But it was already too late. Far away, in a dark corner of the galaxy, something awoke from its slumber. A fleet. A human fleet. For centuries, they had been waiting, watching, hiding in the shadows. And now they knew. It was time to return. The ship that should not exist. For 10,000 years, the Exilary Empire had ruled the galaxy with an iron grip. They believed they had wiped out humanity, erased them from history. But now, deep beneath the frozen surface of Velos 7, something impossible had awakened. A human warship, ancient, powerful, and still alive. And worse, it had sent a signal. The unanswered signal. Inside the Exilary capital, panic spread like wildfire. The High Council gathered in the Grand Hall, their golden robes shimmering under the dim light. Their leader, Supreme Chancellor Xeren, slammed his fist on the table. "You are telling me a human ship has activated." His voice was sharp, laced with disbelief. The Velos 7 commander bowed, his skin pale with fear. "Ah yes, Supreme Chancellor. We tried to stop it, but you failed." Xeren's eyes darkened. He turned to his war minister. Where did the signal go? A silence fell over the room. We don't know, the war minister admitted. It was sent to deep space, somewhere beyond our reach. Zaren's fingers curled into a fist. This could not be happening. The humans are dead. We made sure of it. But even as he spoke the words, a deep unease settled in his bones. Because if humans were truly extinct, who was left to answer the call? The lost fleet awakens. Far beyond the borders of the Exile Empire, past the last known star maps, an abandoned station floated in the void. Its metal walls were covered in ancient scars, battle wounds from a war fought long ago. Inside, a red light began to blink. For centuries, the station had remained dark, silent, a graveyard of forgotten technology. But now, something had changed. The signal from Velo 7 had arrived. A hologram flickered to life, and a deep, weathered voice spoke into the empty halls. We are not dead. One by one, the station's systems roared back to life. Hangar doors rumbled open. Long-forgotten engines hummed with power. And beyond the station, hidden deep within the nebulous shadows, they began to move. The lost fleet. Hundreds of human warships, sleeping for millennia, now awakening with purpose. At the heart of it all, aboard the flagship HSS Vengeance, a man rose from cryosleep. His name was Admiral Kane. And the first words he spoke were cold as ice. It's time to take back our galaxy. The Exilari's worst fear. On that Exilari homeworld, Supreme Chancellor Exaren stood on his balcony, looking out at the golden towers of his empire. His people believed they were untouchable, that no one could challenge their rule. But deep inside, he felt it. A storm was coming. The signal had been sent. The silence had been broken. And the past was no longer buried. The return of the lost fleet. For millennia, the galaxy had slept peacefully, under the illusion that humanity was gone forever. The Exilari Empire had ensured it, rewriting history to erase every trace of the ancient war. But history is not so easily erased. And now, deep in the forgotten corners of space, a ghost from the past was awakening. The echoes of war. The massive command deck of HSS Vengeance was eerily silent. Admiral Kane stood at the center, his breath slow, controlled, as his body adjusted to the years lost in cryosleep. The lights of the ship flickered to life around him. He turned to the holoscreen before him. It displayed something he had not seen in thousands of years. A distress signal, broadcast from an ancient human warship on Velo 7. For the first time in centuries, the long-dormant War Eye, Guardian, spoke. Signal confirmed. Humanity's return is at hand. Kane's fingers clenched into a fist. Finally, they had waited too long. Prepare the fleet, he ordered, his voice as sharp as steel. Across the hidden base, engines that had lain cold for ages roared to life. Human warships, sleek, black, and built for vengeance, shook off the dust of time as their weapon systems came online. The lost fleet, humanity's last surviving force, was waking up. And they were angry. The fear spreads. Far across the stars, inside the grand war chamber of the Exilari Empire, chaos erupted. Supreme Chancellor Exaren stood frozen as his military advisors shouted over each other. The reports were worse than his worst nightmares. Unidentified warships, human warships, had been detected moving out of deep space. Hundreds of them. They can't be real, one general whispered. This is a deception, a trick. But deep inside, they all knew the truth. Humanity had survived. And now, they were coming back. Exaren gritted his teeth. His claws dug into the table as he forced himself to stay calm. Deploy the Armada, he commanded. Destroy them before they reach our borders. But something inside him whispered. It was already too late. The first strike. The lost fleet moved like shadows in the dark. They were ghosts, unseen and silent, slipping through the cracks of Exilari space. The first attack came without warning. At Outpost 49, A auxiliary military station floated in the vast blackness of space. The soldiers there were relaxed, laughing, drinking, unaware that death was already upon them. Then, a flash of blue light. A single human warship dropped from hyperspace. The HSS Revenant. Before the auxiliary even had time to react, the ship fired. A single plasma lance cut through the station, slicing it in half like it was made of paper. The auxiliary barely had time to scream before their outpost erupted in fire. By the time the flames died, the Revenant was gone, vanished into the stars. The auxiliary high command never saw it coming. The galaxy trembles. In every corner of the Empire, alarms screamed. Human warships struck again and again, hitting military targets, supply chains, communication relays. The auxiliary defenses crumbled. The empire that once ruled the galaxy with arrogance and cruelty was now experiencing something they had never felt before: fear. And in the heart of the storm, aboard the HSS Vengeance, Admiral Kane stood on the bridge, watching the chaos unfold. His eyes burned with cold fury. "This is just the beginning," he said. Humanity had returned. And this time, they were here to stay. The first strike. For 10,000 years, the auxiliary empire ruled the galaxy without fear. No enemy could stand against them. No rebellion could last. No species had ever dared to challenge their dominance. Until now, humanity had returned from the shadows, and they had come for vengeance. The silent executioners. The attack came like a phantom in the night. The auxiliary homeworld, Selphar Prime, was alive with lights and celebrations. Nobles feasted. Soldiers stood relaxed at their posts. High Command reviewed reports of minor skirmishes, still believing humanity was a small, insignificant threat. They were wrong. High above their world, the sky ripped open. The lost fleet had arrived. But there was no announcement, no threats, no warnings, only death. The Empire burns. In the dark void of space, the HSS Vengeance led the human fleet, its hull shimmering with the glow of activated weapons. Fire. Admiral Kane's order was calm, emotionless, as if he had been waiting for this moment his entire life. The first wave of kinetic rounds hit the auxiliary defense platforms before they even had time to raise their shields. Explosions erupted, fire and metal debris raining down onto the planet below. The second wave followed, hypersonic missiles tearing through auxiliary battleships like paper. The auxiliary fleet, once confident in its superiority, was in chaos. They had never faced an enemy like this. Their technology was built for control, not survival. Their tactics were made for conquest, not defense. And now, for the first time in 10,000 years, they were on the losing side of a war. The fall of the auxiliary fleet. Inside the Grand War Chamber, Supreme Chancellor Exaran watched in horror. His people had never lost a battle like this. "Where is our fleet?" he roared. A trembling officer stammered, "Destroyed, Supreme Chancellor. The humans. They." A massive explosion lit up the sky, silencing him. Through the great windows of the palace, the Chancellor watched as his capital fleet, 10,000 years of military dominance, was reduced to burning wreckage. He staggered back, eyes wide with fear. This isn't possible. But it was, because the humans weren't just fighting. They were erasing the auxiliary, the message of humanity. On the bridge of the HSS Vengeance, Admiral Kane stood before the holo-communicator. The transmission link was open. His voice echoed across every auxiliary world. "You thought we were extinct. You thought you could erase us. But humanity does not die." A long pause. Then his final words. "This is your only warning. Surrender or be forgotten." The auxiliary leaders stared at the transmission in horror, because in Kane's eyes, they saw something they had never seen before. Not fear, not mercy, only justice. And justice had come for them. The Empire's last stand. For 10,000 years, the auxiliary empire had crushed every enemy, silenced every rebellion, and rewritten history to erase those who dared to challenge them. They believed they were untouchable. But now, their greatest nightmare had become real. Humanity had returned, and they were unstoppable. The desperate call. Inside the crumbling halls of the Xilari High Command, Supreme Chancellor Exaran stood before a massive war map. Red lights blinked across every sector, marking fallen outposts, destroyed fleets, and lost worlds. The humans had swept through the Empire like a storm, wiping out entire Xilari armadas with terrifying precision. Their weapons were faster, their strategy was unpredictable, and their rage was limitless. Theron clenched his fists. This could not be the end. He turned to his remaining generals. His voice, once filled with arrogance, now trembled with urgency. Summon every warship we have, every soldier, every weapon. This is our last stand. The generals hesitated. My lord, even if we gather the entire fleet, we are still outmatched. Siren's eyes burned with fury. Then we will die fighting. The last Xilari fleet. Across the Empire, the call went out. Every remaining warship, from the smallest scout vessel to the mighty dreadnoughts, was summoned to one place. The Xilari homeworld, Selphar Prime. 10,000 warships. The largest fleet ever assembled in Xilari history. It was their final hope. The last chance to stop the humans before they wiped out the Empire completely. But deep down, every Xilari knew the truth. They weren't the hunters anymore. They were the prey. The sky burns. The moment the lost fleet arrived, the battle exploded into chaos. Xilari warships opened fire, filling space with energy blasts, missiles, and plasma beams. But the humans, they didn't even flinch. Their ships moved like predators in the dark, dodging, weaving, striking with brutal precision. A single human dreadnought, the HSS Revenant, tore through an entire Xilari battle formation, ripping apart 20 enemy ships in seconds. For every one human warship destroyed, 20 Xilari fell. The Supreme Chancellor watched from his command center, his heart pounding. This isn't a battle. It's a massacre. The final order. Exaran turned to his war minister, his voice shaking. We must retreat. The war minister looked at him, horrified. My lord, there is nowhere left to run. Siren's breath caught in his throat. He knew it was true. This was the end. The humans had waited for thousands of years for this moment, and now they would not stop until the Empire was ash. On the battlefield, Admiral Kane stood on the bridge of the HSS Vengeance, his cold eyes locked onto the last of the Xilari fleet. He raised his hand. Fire everything. The order was given, and the Xilari Empire burned. The fall of the Xilari. The Xilari Empire had stood for 10,000 years, ruling with an iron grip. They had erased civilizations, burned planets, crushed rebellions before they even began. They had destroyed humanity, believing they had erased them from existence. But now, in the heart of their own empire, they were the ones facing extinction. The unthinkable reality. From the balcony of the Imperial Citadel, Supreme Chancellor Exaran watched in horror. The skies above Selphar Prime, once filled with the golden fleets of his empire, were now a graveyard of burning wreckage. The Xilari homeworld was surrounded. Human warships, sleek, dark, and unstoppable, moved like predators in the night. One by one, the last of the Xilari warships fell. There was no strategy left, no reinforcements coming. The greatest empire in the galaxy was crumbling in a single night. Siren's claws gripped the stone railing. His mind refused to accept the truth. This cannot be happening. But it was. The last stand. Inside the Grand War Chamber, the last of the Xilari generals stood around a flickering holotable. The war map was covered in red. Xilari space was gone. Their armies? Destroyed. Their fleets? Burning. A hollow silence filled the room. No one spoke. No one dared to. Finally, General Velker, the last surviving fleet commander, let out a slow breath. His voice was quiet. "We have lost." The words cut through the air like a blade. Vzirin's eyes darkened. No, he refused to surrender. "There must be a way," he growled. "There must be something we can do." Velker shook his head. "The humans, they are not here to conquer us." He looked at the Chancellor, his golden eyes filled with fear. "They are here to erase us." The Emperor begs for mercy. As the last of the defenses crumbled, the humans descended onto Sulfar Prime. The streets that once held grand parades now burned. The exilary people, once arrogant rulers, now hid in fear, their screams echoing through the shattered cities. And above them, aboard the HSS Vengeance, Admiral Kane watched. His expression was cold, unshaken. This was justice. A transmission came through. It was Chancellor Exaran. For the first time in his life, the leader of the Exilari bowed his head. "Please, we surrender." His voice trembled. "Spare our people. Let us live." Admiral Kane remained silent for a moment, staring at the broken leader of the race that had once tried to erase his own. Then, finally, he spoke. "Mercy." Kane's voice was calm, almost amused. "Did you show mercy to us?" The Chancellor's eyes widened. We were wrong. We see that now." Kane exhaled slowly. His fingers tightened around the edge of the holotable. Too late. He turned to his fleet. "Erase them. The Exilari are no more." Across the planet, human forces descended like judgment itself. The great towers of Sulfar Prime fell one by one. The last of the Exilari leadership was executed. Their records, their history, their very name, wiped from the galaxy. For 10,000 years, they had ruled. And in one night, they were nothing. Humanity stands alone. As the fires of war died down, Admiral Kane stood on the bridge of his ship, looking out into the void. For centuries, humanity had been forgotten. Now, they ruled the stars. The war was over, the Exilari were no more, and in their place, humanity rose from the ashes. Kane took a deep breath. He knew this was just the beginning. "We are back," he said. "And this time, we are here to stay." Humanity's new dawn. For 10,000 years, the galaxy had lived under the shadow of the Exilari Empire. Their rule was absolute. Their word was law. But now, their cities were ash. Their fleets were wreckage. Their people were gone. The Exilari were no more. And in their place, humanity stood alone. The end of an era. The fires on Sulfar Prime had finally begun to die down. The great towers of the capital, once shining symbols of power, now lay in ruins. The streets were silent. No more exilary voices, no more arrogant rulers. Human soldiers walked through the remains of the imperial palace, their boots echoing in the empty halls. On the balcony of what was once the Supreme Chancellor's throne room, Admiral Kane stood, staring at the stars. This was the moment they had waited centuries for. Humanity had returned. And now, the galaxy belonged to them. A new galactic order. Across the galaxy, the news spread like wildfire. The Exilari Empire, the greatest civilization in known history, had fallen. The alien races who once feared them now turned their eyes to humanity. Some needled, others trembled. For centuries, they had believed humans were weak, extinct, forgotten. Now, they understood the truth. Humans were patient, humans were survivors, humans were unstoppable. And now, they were the rulers. The final broadcast. Inside the command center of the HSS Vengeance, the fleet prepared for its next move. The last Exilari transmission had been deleted from the galactic network. Their name would be erased from history, just as they had tried to erase humanity. In its place, a new message was sent. It was a simple message, a warning. Admiral Kane's face appeared on every screen, across every world, on every station. His voice was calm, unwavering. "We are humanity. You tried to erase us. You failed. We are here now. And we are never leaving." The message ended. Silence fell across the galaxy. The meaning was clear. The age of the exile was over. The age of humanity had begun. The future of the stars. The war was over. But Admiral Kane knew this was only the beginning. The galaxy was vast. Other empires remained. Other threats lurked in the dark. And humanity. They were stronger than ever. Kane took a deep breath, looking out into the endless void. "This is our galaxy now," he whispered. "Let's see who dares to challenge us." The fleet turned toward the stars. Engines roared. The next chapter of humanity's dominion had begun. And this time, no one would stand in their way.